joining us today. Um, we're going to go ahead and get started, and as people still sort of trickle in. So my name is Marissa Alas. I'm one of the Techqueria chapter directors out here in Los Angeles, and I'm very happy we were able to partner up with Lindsay and Flatiron School again to bring you all this event. For those of you who don't know, or this is your first event with Techqueria, we are a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to help and guide the Latinx community in tech. And if you haven't already, please join our Slack channel. Yeah, and now I'm gonna go ahead and toss it over to Matt so he can introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Matthew Torres. I've been working in the tech industry for the last 8 years. I'm currently the head of US marketing for Soundbox, where I manage our digital marketing efforts across Google, Facebook, Instagram, and Amazon. And Soundbox is essentially a speaker startup out of Copenhagen. Over the years, I've helped with the hiring process in multiple tech companies. And one of my reasons for speaking today is I graduated in 2009, which was the middle of the financial crisis. So I understand what it's like to search for a job in volatile times. So I hope to share some of the wisdom I learned over the last decade and share a little bit more with you. So I'll be one of the speakers today, and I've been part of Techqueria for the last few years. So really excited and honored to be on the panel today.
Awesome. I can go next if that's cool. My name is Lindsay. I'm the marketing manager for online courses at Flatiron School. Like Maritza mentioned, Flatiron School is a tech education bootcamp, and we're really honored to be here tonight. Love hosting events with this group, and really grateful to have everyone here tonight. Looks like an awesome crew. For those that don't know, Flatiron School teaches software engineering, data science, and cybersecurity to passionate learners, working with our students to not only teach them the tech skills to land a tech job in any of those 3 fields, but we also have dedicated career services for each of our students to help them land that job once they've learned those skills. And so that's why I have Ellen here alongside me. She is one of our career coaches at Flatiron School, and I'll popcorn it over to her to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Lindsay, for that intro. Just like Lindsay said, I'm one of the career coaches at Flatiron School. We're a boot camp. We have locations in New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Austin, and Chicago. And we have I'd say about 4 programs. We have data science, software engineering, UX UI, and just recently cybersecurity. So very happy to speak. Should I pass it back to anyone? Should I?
No, you can go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Okay, so so the presentation that I have for all of you tonight is called Hidden Job Market, or how to I guess navigate the hidden job market. And Lindsay, if you could do me a favor, if you could monitor the chat for me, please, and let me know if there's any questions. Primarily, I'd be happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation, but if you think there's something that needs to be addressed before, just feel free to interrupt me. So with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let me just, hold on. Oop, hit the wrong button. Let me try that again. Okay. So like I said, this is, can everybody see? I think we're good. Okay, so this is our presentation. If you could keep your video on so that we could see some faces, that would be great. But please make sure your microphone is off. And like I said, if you could use the chat for questions, that would be much appreciated. So like I said, my name's Ellen. Before Flatiron, what I have is 5 years experience as a private coach. I used to work with college students, young and returning professionals, as well as people with disabilities, because before I started coaching, I was a special ed teacher. So that kind of played into working with students, and then I transitioned to life coaching. And I also have a background in special ed and graphic communications. So that's where my whole journey with Flatiron School fits quite nicely. And my sort of mindset is to align the people that I work with in terms of when talking about their jobs, how can we align their personal strength and values towards those positions that they're applying for? Because we find, and this is a value also with Flatiron, that we find the more aligned that our students are with the jobs that they're applying to, the more successful they will be. So when it's a little bit about the agenda, we're going to talk about what we wish it were like and what it is really like. Okay, and then we're going to talk about what recruiters think, and then how to tap into that hidden job market, especially in this kind of craziness that we're in right now, how to actually do more than just the average job seeker. And then we're going to talk about key takeaways. Okay, so we all wish it was this easy. I know that a lot of people, the first place that they go to when they go job searching is of course LinkedIn. And we all wish that we could just click that easy apply button and then take a snooze on the couch and then wait for it to get that text that says, you know, not even you've gotten the interview, but you're hired. So we all wish it were that easy. But in fact, it's much, much harder. And especially in this job market, your job can essentially come from anywhere. Your job can come from like the middle, or it can be over here, or it can be over here, or it can be over here. You just don't know. You just don't know where it's going to show up. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, a lot of us feel that this is how recruiters fill jobs, that they probably go to job advertisements like on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, and then they probably go to recruitment agencies, then professional associations, then they might access their own network, and then they might go to their own staff members, and then their hiring managers in their company. And then if they get if they can't find anybody, they probably promote someone. But in actuality, it's the exact opposite. Okay, so especially in this job market, when basically people are trying to fill jobs quickly and with less overhead. So why do you think, so pretty much if you're trying to like have a small budget, you might want to see who you want to promote first, like internally. And then you would go to the hiring manager and see if they have someone in mind, or if there's an internal staff member. And then they might go through their networking contacts, and then professional associations, and then recruitment agencies. And then only when they've exhausted will they then go towards LinkedIn and job advertisements. So what do you think, I just want to break up the monotony here. Why do you think recruiters go towards internal, or towards who they know the most first? What do you think the benefit for a company might that be? And Lindsay, if you could field the questions for me, that would be great.
We have easier, cheaper to onboard.
Mm-hmm.
They're known entities.
Known entities, right? So when you have known entities, so if you get a recommendation from somebody, just like if you were trying to see the latest technology and you got a referral, you got a thumbs up from one of your friends versus a commercial, who might you believe more? Probably your friend, right? Because they know you, they know what you're after, they know what it's like. It's the same thing with companies. When an internal person refers someone, they already know that subconsciously they already have the company in mind. They already have the company's values in mind. And also they're probably referring their friend with knowledge. So they won't have to jump as many hoops, and in the long run spend as much money, because the hiring process will be shorter and it'll be more trustworthy, and it'll in turn go much faster. Okay, so here's the flip side of it though. Job seekers only, usually what they do is they apply on LinkedIn and then they sit and wait by the phone. Or they apply and then they think, well, I haven't heard from the company and it's been like a day, so they probably don't want to hear from me. So what we're going to talk about today is how to get deeper into the pile. How do job seekers go from just applying on LinkedIn to actually going to networking or internal staff members? How do you actually do that? And that's the hidden market we're going to address. Okay. In addition, I want you to think of the hidden job market is just not this, but it's all this thing underneath. So we're going to teach you how to do that, but also to keep in mind, to access the non-published job market, it takes planning, patience, a lot of effort, confidence, and tenacity, because you're going to have to essentially talk to people you've never talked to before, find a common ground, and also keep persevering and following up. Okay, so what we're going to talk about with the hidden job market is, how do you do this? Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, what people usually do is they go to LinkedIn and they say, okay, so what jobs can I match? And they try to match the job that's on their screen. What we want you to do, and what we recommend our students to do, is kind of like to do the exact opposite. First, before you go to LinkedIn, before you go to any search engine, you need to sit down with yourself. You need to be clear on what your goals are, what your interest, what your background is. So the best thing to do is to sit down with yourself and say, what kind of skills do I have? What kind of transferable skills do I have? What sort of industries am I interested in? Okay, and let me back up a bit. When I say transferable skills, it's not just your tech skills. It's what makes you unique from another technical person out there. Say, for example, you're a technical person that knows a lot of code, but you also have an interest in nonprofits, or you also have an interest in like health or entertainment for some reason. Like, really get to know yourself and what your personal traits are. Okay, and then of course, like we said, you can't ignore today. The pandemic has hit a lot of companies, hit a lot of industries. So pretty much also see what industries are thriving. For example, we know that the health industry needs a lot of help and probably has a lot of openings. Likewise, point of service is still active, as well as streaming services is also pretty active. So you need to know what industries are still thriving, like with education. They need to figure out how are they going to do remote learning when all this is going on. Okay, so it's definitely better for you to do a highly focused approach versus scattered. Now, of course, with that being said, you want to be open with your choices. Maybe if you choose health, you want to have three different sizes, let's say, to consider. You would want to consider startup, mid-size, and the big companies. So that gives you some leeway. Okay, so how do you figure out what your interests are, what you can personally offer? One of our coaches likes to have her students draw a diagram. It's what do I like or what am I good at? And then what do I not like and what am I not good at? And then basically draw that table and see what sort of things you can offer a company. In this example, this person likes coding, but they're not really good at finance. At the same time, they're good at customer service, but they don't like it. So what they might want to do is, let's see, okay, so I'm going to take all these things that I'm good at, and I'm going to see if I can kind of mesh it into something that works for me. So I don't know how familiar the group is with tech positions, but one of these tech positions that pretty much covers these is what we call tech adjacent. So tech adjacent are people that work with technology or know technology and work alongside coders. So that person might be good because these are all these things that this person is good at. They might be good at tech adjacent, or in the design world, they may be good at UX researching because they like research. So again, you want to be clear on what you want, because that will save you a lot of time in the long run. And so has anybody ever gone kind of like down the rabbit hole when they're interested in a position, but they see on the right-hand side menu that there's just this other position that they guess they fit, but they don't really, they're not really interested in it. They just kind of like check off all the boxes. So if you are more focused, it will prevent you from going down the rabbit hole and wasting unnecessary energy. Okay, so, and then like we said, you need to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. You need to think outside the box and think about ways that maybe not a lot of people are doing, and do the less traffic methods. Okay, so we're gonna, what we mean by that is being at Flatiron, we believe in this phrase that we call scrappy. So it's kind of like doing the 20% more, okay? And talking to somebody you don't know, or taking a risk, making projects that maybe is personalized to a company, which we will talk about later. And then basically, whenever you get a rejection, just think of it this way: you're that much closer to the position that you're meant to work for. Okay, so what do we mean by the less trafficked areas? Okay, this does not mean that when you're doing extra, it does not mean that you do not apply, that you do not use LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and Indeed. You still apply, but then you also, in addition, do the less trafficked areas. Both of them work together to get you ahead. Okay, and in fact, if you knew, 80% of jobs actually come from relationships. They don't come from job postings. They don't come from waiting by the phone. They come from building relationships and getting to know people. and being scrappy. Okay, so for example, how could you do that? Okay, once you identify those industries or those basically those traits that you have, those transferable traits, you look at the industries that are most aligned with those. So you may look at not only their job postings, but sometimes they're having like events. They have a newsletter. They post upcoming events on their LinkedIn page, for example. And you also want to know their competitors. Okay, so what is happening in the industry itself? Okay, particularly with the pandemic, particularly with like, are they, how are they hiring? What areas are they hiring in the industry most often? And then, of course, you might want to go to volunteer sites, because volunteering, believe it or not, is a good way to get to know companies. It's not a full-time job right off the bat, but it's definitely a way to go and network and get to know staff members and for them to get to know you. Okay, likewise, a lot of the industry conferences these days, especially during the pandemic, they used to cost like $500. Now some of them are waiving the entrance fee. So again, going to something like this, and this was a past one, and getting in front of professionals that are in your field is another way to get to know people. Also, not only in tech, but also going to the industry conferences that are in the industries that you're interested in. So if you're interested in health, go to the health conferences. If you're interested in education, go to the education conferences, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then of course, you want to think of the other platforms less traveled. So LinkedIn, my friends, as much as LinkedIn is well known, it's not the only place that people are networking. What do you think the advantage of, okay, when we think of like platforms, what do you think what is kind of like the mindset when you go to LinkedIn? Like, are people casual there or are they professional? Are you getting anything, Lindsay? I'll just say it.
Professional.
Yeah, professional. So let's say you were interested in like a health app, okay, and you went on Twitter. Do you think they might be more open, or do you think they would be more like, what do you think the benefit of maybe contacting somebody on Twitter versus LinkedIn might be? Does anyone have an idea?
Less formal, a little more casual.
Mm-hmm. A little more casual. And when you're a little bit more casual, you're a little bit more open sometimes. Okay, so for example, if you, and I'll give a more concrete example on how to actually use this, but this is why visiting other platforms is another idea. Same with Slack. A lot of companies are on Slack. A lot of networking is done on Slack. And then of course, if you're a coder, GitHub is a good, can you take a look at my code? Or you might want to post, you might want to do a blog on Medium about the project you just did with your friends or in your school or what have you. Okay, so those are examples of roads less traveled. Okay, you also want to look for the hot topics or trends. How can you speak to the to the up and coming things? I know that as soon as the pandemic hit, they were asking for volunteers up the gazoo to find out the data, to help with testing, to see where the numbers were. So definitely getting a sense of the pulse, getting a sense of what companies need and what they're asking for is definitely a way to go. As we said, like volunteer work to show what you can do. You might also want to, and I had one student that says, I don't want to like base my search on the company. I want to base it on people I want to work with. So a lot of students will also, they won't necessarily, I mean, they'll look at companies, but they most likely go and see what the people that they admire and who they want to emulate, what are they doing? And they'll ask them for one-on-ones. Okay, again, like if you can build a project that will benefit a company right now, that's a great thing. You can go to podcasts and you can go to meetup talks and reach out to the speaker afterwards. Also, if there's something that a professional has posted on LinkedIn that really is interesting, it's an opportunity for you to make a meaningful comment, not just great article, but particularly what did you like about that article? And in fact, you can also either direct message that person, or you can even post your own article as a follow-up to that, or your own project, and tag that person. So there's many ways to utilize the technology we have in use while working from home today. So another, once you identify your leads, what you want to do is, of course, you want to set Google alerts. You want to, like I said, follow up and read companies. And these are, as we were saying, these are kind of the platforms you could use: LinkedIn groups, meetups, Slack channels. You can even, if you feel so bold, you can even reach out to the CEO. Okay, if you can't find anybody to talk to, chances are you could probably even reach out to the CEO and just tell them, especially if you have something you want to show them, that's a very good move. I know my colleague actually, when she really wanted to work for Flatiron, she couldn't find a person's name to submit the application to. So the only person she could find was the CEO. So she said, what do I have to lose? Again, it's being scrappy. So she said, what do I have to lose? And she just sent him a LinkedIn message. A week later, she got a call from Flatiron to interview. So you never know. And then also, if you contact the head of a department like UX or software engineering, you can always ask for feedback on your website, on your portfolio, by the head of software engineering, by the head of UX, because they are in the industry, they are in the fields you want to get into, so they can help you personalize your website, your portfolio towards the company and the career that you're pursuing. Okay, I will send like these links later, because I realize if I click on the links, it'll take more time and it'll probably take me out of the presentation. But so these are some examples. And of course, we've gone over Twitter, and we've gone over leveraging your story across many social media platforms. Okay, so I want to give you an example of how this would work, because I'm sure you guys are thinking, that's great in theory, but how would I actually make this work? Okay, so let's say, for example, you are searching for a job in health and wellness. Okay, so like I said, you would look at the industry. You would look at how the industry is reaching its audience. How are they keeping people advised of what they're doing? So a lot of these things are because everyone has so much to do and they can't go places. Apps are great. It's a great kind of platform for them to get some peace of mind. So you might want to track, okay, so what are the most sought after apps in the health and wellness industry? So you might want to directly reach out to the team at Headspace or Calm, or even, MyFitnessPal, if you like fitness as well. You want to see where are they thriving? Like, what is doing really well in their business? Is it the app? Is it the timers? And where is kind of like their breaking point? what is really thriving, but what do they need more help in? Are they like, is their bandwidth cut out? Or is their customer service flooded? How can you help them as a software engineer, as a designer, to make the pressure easier? Okay, and like we said, like volunteer sites, COVID is a great example. Maybe you can start and volunteer with a company, with a health and wellness company, that maybe they need help to develop an easier app for their clients to deal with, like who do they contact if, or what do they eat to keep themselves healthy, what kind of like if they need like even just like a remote doctor's appointment, how can they get what sort of apps help them with that? Okay, and then of course, with these conferences, not only meeting people, but what's their plan in a few months from now? Where are they headed in a few months from now? How are they going to open? How are they planning to maybe not open right away? Okay, and so what you would want to do, for example, in taking this example, you might want to say, okay, so Headspace is really thriving right now. So you know what? I'm going to look at their app and I'm going to see the functionality of it. And maybe you see a feature that they could improve on. So you know what? You're going to code about it. You're going to code just one feature, not the whole app, just one additional feature. Like let's say they could really use a chat box. So you're going to code a chat box and you're going to personalize it to Headspace. And then when you've built it, maybe you want to direct message it to the head software engineer at Headspace and say, hey, I noticed you guys have a lot of customers. I built this chat box that I was hoping that could be useful to your customers. Or I built a chat box specifically for Headspace and I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Okay, likewise, you could build something in addition for any volunteer opportunities. Maybe there's something extra that a company needs, but they don't know it yet. And you could do it as a volunteer project. You can also blog about your findings and you could send it to the company directly to get their thoughts. So those are just some examples. Likewise, you could also follow the industry leader and maybe they're blogging about how it's going to be from six months from now and what they wish like a fix could be. So you could message them about that. You could message them and say, I really enjoyed your article and I really enjoyed your article about where you're going to be in 6 months. And I noticed you brought up these pain points, would you mind talking about it? Or it's like, what's a pain point that you see that you would like new and upcoming software engineers or designers or, cyber analysts to know?
Ellen, we have two similar questions related to this.
Sure.
Wouldn't taking initiative for free or spending a lot of time or energy be kind of risky? How do you know when to say this is taking too much of my time for something that I might not get in return?
Okay, so it's a good question. So it depends on a good rule of thumb that I always tell my students is whenever you see a company, do like a personal rating scale for yourself. If you look at the company and you're researching the company and your excitement level, like from a scale to 1 to 10 is like, let's say I look up Headspace and I'm not so thrilled about them. And it's about, okay, Headspace, after I've done my research on the company, after I've seen what they're doing, I'm not so excited. I'm like a 6. Then of course I want to spend 6 energy level. But if I look at a company and I love a company and I love their mission and I love what they're doing. And like, if I could work there, that would be my dream company. It's a 10. Then you need to put a 10 in your effort, okay? But you would only do the maximum amount of effort to a company if you really feel it. Do what your own like gut is telling you. If you're not excited about the company, send in your resume and then move on. But if you are, this is how you be scrappy and go the extra mile. Okay, I hope, does that answer the question? But that's cool. Any other questions, Lindsay, by the way?
We have a few, but I'll save them till you're done with your slides, and Matthew, once you've had a chance to talk too.
Okay, cool, very cool. Okay, so basically, and then the question of who do you connect with? Okay, this may all seem redundant, but it's, you know, we're repeating it so it solidifies. Okay, so you want to see who's posting projects. You know, it's also kind of like building not only like people in the company that you want to work with, but this is what we're talking about, people you want to emulate. Who are those go-getters? Who is always going the extra mile? It can be company leaders for sure, but also you might want to see who's actually really networking, okay? Because it's also, in this day and age, when we're by ourselves in our homes, it can be hard to get motivation. So part of the magic is also surrounding yourself with, or at least talking to people who are excited, okay? So people who you see on LinkedIn a lot and posting a lot and posting articles, posting projects, you definitely want to get to know those people, because you kind of want to get a sense of what gets them excited, because that's going to inevitably get you excited, okay? Same thing like what we were talking about with leaders. And then it's like, you also want to follow, what are the companies always talking about? Are they always talking about making things that are environmentally friendly? Are they always talking about, like sustainability, how to save money? What is really like an important kind of factor to them? Okay, and then we forget when we graduate that, you know what, your alumni is always there for you. Of course, with this group is always there for you as well, but you might want to also revisit like your old school alma mater. You might want to see what your old high school friends or college friends are doing. Maybe they work at a company that you would want to work for. Okay, and then likewise, like with this group, this is a fantastic group to always dive into, but you can also dive into your own sort of network. If you're women, of course, women in tech, Out in Tech is a good one. Latinx is a brilliant one. I know they have like bi-weekly meetings too, so you can definitely feel free to dive into those groups to help you. Okay, these I will give to I'll give to the organizer, but these are links that I'm happy to forward, and I would go into, but I don't want to take up too much time, that you can dive into yourself and help. Okay, so just to close, when in doubt, remember, like, to always continue to learn, to always continue to code, and to not be afraid to show your projects on GitHub, on blog posts, not be afraid to show your projects on Twitter, to direct messages, and don't be afraid to even reach out to like people in the industry, especially think about like your own sort of background. Like, where did you go? Like, I know for our students, we encourage them to reach out to people who went to boot camps, because you want to reach out to those people who will understand your lifestyle, who came from a similar story that you did. And then there are old job postings. It may be that job posting is no longer accepting applications, but if you like the company, feel free to still network with them. Maybe they have another posting that's more relevant, okay? And you can always an icebreaker is just to ask, are you still hiring? You might also want to look at, maybe it's not a full-time gig. Maybe it's an internship. Maybe it's part-time. Maybe it's, if you can just take me on as an unpaid intern, this is what I can do. And like I said before, be confident, patient, scrappy, and consistent. So this is just a summary, okay? You might want to find what works best for you, by trying something new and seeing how you can find positions that speak to you, how you can find companies that speak to you. And then know that just applying to a job is only part of the battle. How can you build relationships, and what can you create from those relationships? What makes you unique outside of tech, and use it. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and think outside the box. Okay, so with that, does anyone have any questions? And Lindsay, feel free to fire them away.
For sure. Maybe we do about 5 minutes of questions, and then Matthew, we can kick off with what you have to say, and then we can circle back on any lingering questions.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, so the first one, Domingo asked, given we're working from a deficit if we aren't part of a company already, is there a good way to tell if a company cares about diversity or inclusion if they don't have a diversity or inclusion officer at their organization? Trying to break into tech as a Black person, there's documented biases we're competing against as well.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can go about this, my friend. There's a lot of companies that are waking up, thankfully. I know, I think it's called Black Excellence in Tech. You might want to Google it. I think it may just be a Flatiron thing, but I know that they have companies that are participating in this program. You might even want to Google companies with, Black software, any sort of program is a good way to see what companies are doing. If they don't have a diversity officer, definitely when you're reaching out and doing those code outreaches, say you're reaching out to the head of software engineering and you want to show them your project, you can also ask them for 5 to 10 minutes of their time. Okay, and when you sit down with someone for 5 to 10 minutes, you can ask them, so what are your company's goals for diversity? It's you're not threatening them. You're not saying they're not doing diversity. You're just curious. And sometimes it takes companies a little bit to say, I never thought of it that way. I myself, I know you guys can't tell, but I myself I'm in a wheelchair. And so I work for Flatiron, of course, but, it wasn't until one of my managers was doing a talk and she said, I realized that only 15% of people with disabilities even get hired out of the whole population. So sometimes it takes a bit for people to wake up, and it's just walking that fine line of respectability, and just posing the question may even help them to realize. And also it gives you a sense of the culture just by asking something that open-ended. And then you can decide, do you want to pursue, working with this company too?
Great advice, thank you. I think Matthew, let's pop it over to you and then we can continue with Q&A from there. That sounds good.
Awesome. So Thank you, Ellen. That was amazing. I didn't create a PowerPoint or anything. Mine is more of a storytelling. My experience back in 2009 in the financial crisis, but before I get into that, thank you, Techqueria and Flatiron, for just inviting me to speak. I'm very honored. A big part of the reason why I'm in Techqueria is to give back, because I didn't have anybody in my role to kind of give wisdom and practical advice along the way. A bit about me. Again, my name is Matthew Torres. I've been working in the tech industry for the last 8 years. I head up the team for Soundbox, which is a speaker company based in Copenhagen in Denmark. And I manage 5 people and manage platforms such as Google, Instagram, Facebook, and Amazon. So focusing on marketing. So I know there's a good chunk of you that are engineers, but hopefully you can learn something along the way as well. So like many of you, my story starts with searching for a job in a very volatile market. I graduated from the University of Arizona in the middle of the financial crisis in 2009, which was stressful to say the least. The markets were crashing, companies were laying off, and a large portion of entry-level jobs were getting taken up by people with mid-level experience. So it's similar to the market some of you are going into today. To look back, I spent 5 months searching for entry-level jobs in Arizona after I graduated, and then I didn't receive any callbacks or any interviews, so I moved to Los Angeles with my family. I thought a larger market would be better to get my start. I found an opportunity in an unpaid internship in Santa Monica to add any kind of marketing experience to my resume. I stayed there about 6 months, applying daily while I was there. From there, I was able to land my first customer service job in a marketing agency in Irvine. And then to find that role specifically, I used a small local job board because I didn't have any luck with the large job sites. Fast forward 10 years, and now I'm part of an international hardware startup of 60 people over 2 continents. And I help lead the digital marketing efforts and lead a team of 5. So over the years, I've learned some practical things along the way in regards to being an interviewee. Here are some of those learnings. For any interview, always dress up, even if it's a video call. Bring a bottle of water. I know I get super nervous in interviews, so cotton mouth or just like having water is a good thing. I've been in situations where I didn't, and it is a bit awkward. So just prepare, bring some extra resumes once we get back to normal, and arrive early. And then just have your resume ready if you need to email somebody in a virtual call or anything like that. Start thinking about a few work-related examples and stories that you can tell to give the interviewer a better picture of who you are and how you tackle problems. The application and interview process takes time. During the process, give yourself grace, carve out a few hours a day to apply to jobs, and network through LinkedIn and Slack groups. Also, volunteering and internships are also great ways to get your foot in the door, like myself. I think Ellen covered a lot of this, and it was practical in my life, and I'm definitely wouldn't have gotten to where I've gotten if I didn't take these opportunities to kind of just get my foot in the door. On the other side of the table, I do a lot of interviewing for marketing roles and other roles in our startup company and past tech companies. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I look for when I'm doing interviews, when I'm looking at resumes. For me, I really focus on whatever the objective of the company is. So right now I'm part of a startup, so we're in growth mode like most startups. And I focus on people that have initiative. They have projects that in their resumes or in their cover letter, they show any kind of project where they've grown it from here to here. And I just kind of look at somebody that's like a self-starter or initiator. So a few years ago, I've had a pleasure of joining Techqueria and being involved in the groups of meeting other Latinos in tech. Techqueria, for those who you don't know, is a nonprofit that serves the largest community of Latinx in tech. For me, it's a great resource that shares jobs, networking opportunities, and to bounce off ideas to one another, people in similar roles, or just similar spaces of being the only person of color in a boardroom. If that sounds like something you're interested in, feel free to go to techqueria.org, join the Slack group, and you can find out all the information there. I think overall for me, to recap, through the process of searching for your next roles, know that you'll have your ups and downs. I encourage you to search for professional communities you're interested in. Introduce yourself, ask questions, and be friendly. Be easy on yourself and be patient. That's something I wish I would have known. I'm very critical, so know that it's going to take some time. Always be kind to everyone you come in contact with through the interview process. If it's the HR representative or the recruiter setting up interviews, just be super nice through the process. Also, in the interview process, ask for their email. And one of the biggest things that sets people apart from myself is writing a simple thank you email after an interview. You don't know how much that sets you apart from others, that it's around like only 20% that I get that. So overall, thank you so much. I wish you perseverance and luck through this process. And I want to open up for the next set of questions for Ellen and I. Lindsay, is that next?
Definitely. I have a backlog of questions, and if anyone
Awesome.
else has questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. But Matthew, thank you for that. I totally agree with what you said specifically about giving yourself grace. With anything that's hard, being positive towards yourself and giving yourself a rest is super important. I'll kick off. Maybe there was a couple questions about Slack communities. So either Ellen or Matthew, how have you found Slack communities? What's your advice for finding Slack communities to connect with others in?
Yeah, I can start, and Ellen, if you want to chime in. But for me, I'm in two major Slack communities. One of them is Techqueria, which is focused on Latinx, which I just spoke about. The other is more focused on like PPC, which is pay per click, of like my specific niche. And there's different channels that showcase like social paid ads, Amazon marketplaces, display, all of these different facets in there. I really enjoy it. So if I'm running into an issue that I can't figure out, and my Google rep, it doesn't have the capacity to like figure out that technical question, I usually chime in there and ask. And it's a good community of people all over the world that might help answer those questions. So for me, it's just great to kind of network and to help out one another through the process. And I found a lot of benefits from it on my side.
Thanks, Matthew. That's a great answer. Thanks so much. Yeah, so luckily I was able to kind of quickly get one of those links that I wanted to share with all of you. Basically, it's a very in-depth list. It's like 400 Slack communities. Okay, so you might want to just have fun, dig in there. And when we're talking about Slack communities, it doesn't just need to be tech. Like Matthew was saying, like go into your community, go into your people that you feel that would really know you. But then, like I was saying, the industries, it's what's so important. You're not just a technical person. You're not just a person with a certain background. You're also interested in contributing to different industries. And all industries, like it or not, they're gonna have to start embracing tech if they haven't done so already. So a lot of those Slack channels, e-commerce, health, education, all those sort of sports, entertainment, just feel free to even Google like entertainment Slack channel, LA Slack channel, even just be creative creative. And a good place to start, you can start with that link that I have in the chat, you know, and you can go from there. And a lot of these Slack channels, even if it's like sometimes because they want to find people quickly, some people will say, you know, if you go to the like marketing Slack channel, they'll post an internal job listing and say, if anybody's interested, feel free to, you know, message me, you know. So there's always a way.
Awesome. Our next question from Edwin is, I'm about to start my senior design project class in a few weeks for computer engineering. How can I go about building a project to benefit a company officially through my school and that company? I guess what's the best approach to solving a company's problem, like you mentioned earlier, Ellen?
So I would ask, like, first, what companies are you interested in? Like, what industries are you interested in? What companies are you interested in? Research those companies and then find what their problem is. And then you start building.
Awesome, good advice. Andre asks, are there any guidelines to find your passion that you would recommend? A friend once told me to write down a list of things I like to do, solve math problems, study foreign language, etc. What have you two found helpful in finding passions or helping others find their passions?
Matthew, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, I just have a book recommendation. It's What Color Is Your Parachute? I think for me personally, it's helped me kind of navigate. It's more of like it's a bigger book, but it's like a workbook that you have to put in time. But I think it asks and pulls a lot out of you that will help you over time. And yeah, so I would recommend that. What Color Is Your Parachute?
That's a great advice because, yeah, I love that. I love that research. It's a good one. It's a good one. Once you've done once you've read that book and done the exercises, if you need more help, you could always like Google like list of values or list of personal values. And I'm sure because every coaching program has a list like that. So I'm sure you can find one, and they will literally be things like they'll list values like freedom, family, you know, independence, and you can just circle the like maybe like circle your top 10 and then break it down. What are your top 5? And then based on like your top 5, you could maybe go into, okay, so I value my time, I value my friends, I value, you know, and just kind of do those keyword search. I'll have to dig it up, but there is a software development website that based your search on values. Let me see if I can dig that up while we're asking more questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I can hop in with the next one. Matthew, maybe you can take this. Yeah. My question is in regards to what advice do you give to tackle the network gap? So if you don't feel like you have a super strong or solid network, where do you start with that?
Yeah, I would just say start looking at like what Ellen has recommended of those groups that you can plug into and then start building it. I mean, it's something that I would recommend to start building, especially if you don't have a larger network. I think over time, the different places you work and the different people you come across, vendors, partners, things like that, your network will grow over time. But if you're just starting out, I think it's even more important to plug into a community. And it might be a community around like soccer or coffee or something outside of work, and that can build over time if you like to knit or whatever it looks like. So I would say start there, and just know that like over time, when you're having different roles, just plug in, you know, like wherever you're at, and then your network will grow over time.
Awesome. And do you have any personal experience? We got a question about how often should we reach out to old contacts to keep the relationship. Do you have any personal experience there with, like you mentioned, vendors or people you've come across in your career that you regularly reach out to in any way?
Yeah, I think what I don't have like a normal like cadence of when I reach out. I think that might be more on like I think if you're in the market for something, or there's a connection you have that they can do an introduction, I would, then that would spark the interest. But yeah, I don't reach out like normally, for me personally.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say as like a personal anecdote, whenever I come across an email or something that happens in my day-to-day that reminds me of that person, I shoot them a note and say what happened. That's usually like a pretty organic way, and it's worked for me, but that's awesome advice.
Hey, you guys are in luck. I did find the website. So bear in mind, this is software engineering, okay? So apologies if it's, only one sort of area, but it's a good place to start. But I don't know who created this. Now keep in mind, it's not location specific. So you may end up with something in Kentucky. They didn't arrange the companies by region, but it's a good place to start. So I hope you find that helpful.
Awesome. Thank you for linking that.
Yeah.
We have about 2 more questions. So if anyone, after we get through those, feel free to put more questions in the chat box, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. But Ellen, could you go a little bit further in depth with what you mean by getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in your job search?
Oh, yeah, sure. You're not going to want to reach out to strangers. I have a lot of students that say, but I don't want to bother them. Usually have you ever heard of that quote that everything you want lies just outside your comfort zone? So anything that makes you a little uncomfortable. Now, we're not saying to do it all the time, but it's like, I don't want to bother them. They probably have so much on their desk. Or if you have that voice that says like, why would anybody want to talk to me? That's pretty much a good signal. That is what being uncomfortable is like. That's talking to people you don't want to talk to. That's making a conversation, or even asking them a question that you wouldn't want to. You want to, but you don't want to embarrass yourself. Okay? So anytime you have that feeling of, I don't want to embarrass myself, that's when you need to do it. Okay? Because basically, what have you got to lose? Like my friend who got her job at Flatiron, she didn't have to. She didn't have to reach out to the CEO, because it's like, who wants to reach out to the CEO? But she really believed in the mission. She really believed in the company. For Flatiron, for her was a 10. So she was like, I'm going to go for it. The worst that can happen is they don't get back to you. You're no worse off.
Yeah, something that comes to mind from that was I was at a SIMPO event, that's Search Engine Marketing Professional. It's like professional organization, and it was at Microsoft, and the group I was with, they got approached to like do a video like interview, and they both were like they did not want to do it, and I felt super uncomfortable, but I just went for it. And then it turned out that Microsoft used that video a ton and advertised with it for the next few years. And then like my CEO was super excited because our like business name at the time was there. So I think for me, just like that uncomfortable feeling, I like went into it, and I'm glad I did. Like if I had a little time to talk myself out of it, I probably would have, but I would just encourage you, like over time, just when you feel that feeling of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, just put yourself out there And for me, that like helped out. And now like when I go to marketing events, they like people have said, "Oh, you're from the Microsoft video," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, for sure." So yeah, definitely do those things because it helps over time.
That's a really cool example, Matthew. That's a really cool example. That's awesome. That's really awesome. And then one thing I want to add, don't do it with expectation. Don't say, okay, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable because the CEO is going to contact me. Because you don't know, it's when you don't have any expectation. That's when people contact you. When you have expectation, you do it, and maybe it's because you have expectation. It may not follow through, and then you get very, very disappointed. So just do things with no expectation.
Awesome advice and very cool story about that video. That's awesome. Last question I have is, Gabriella said, I have a question regarding follow-up. So I guess, Ellen, maybe in your career coaching advice, when is the best time to follow up? And then Matthew, as a hiring manager, kind of what are your expectations there?
So the best time to follow up is like generally a week. Okay, generally. But let's say they said that they were going to contact you on Friday, and Friday comes and goes. You can follow up on that Monday. You can follow up on that Tuesday. Okay. I've had students that follow up 1 week, they don't hear anything. And then they follow up one more time, and then they hear something. Or they may not hear anything at all. But it's when you do the extra in a respectful manner, like a week to week, that's respectful. But doing it twice is probably not what people do. So people aren't expecting it. So that's what kind of sets you apart.
Yeah, I think from my side, usually a week is good. And then if there's no reply from me, just popping in probably like anywhere from like 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks, because with our jobs and hiring process, like we're doing a million things, so we're often moving really fast. So I think it shows initiative. The times where it kind of hurts you is just like the follow-up, like constantly, like I would say like over 3 to like 6 times. Like I've had people just like be inappropriate in asking questions of, hey, like are you going to hire me, or like being very forward. And I think it just kind of hurts the process. So for me, just be nice and just check in, and then don't have like an attitude if you don't hear back. I think that's definitely something where I've ran into people kind of in different situations where that's definitely a turn off for like the hiring manager as well. So yeah, just give it time. But I think a week to 2 weeks is a good pace of that.
Yeah, be perseverant but respectful.
Yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
will go a long way.
And then along that line, when do you ask for contact information in the interview to follow up with someone that's interviewing you?
I usually do it right at the end, like with like, do you have any questions? And then ask my questions. I'll usually ask about like how the role affects overarching objectives for the company, and it's just to kind of see, okay, well, what are they looking for? Are they looking for someone that's very tactical, that's going to be like a short-term project, or are they like a piece to a cog that's like a bigger thing? And then from there, I'll ask and say, hey, can I have your email just so I can stay in contact, and just natural like that. But I usually do it towards the end for me personally.
Yeah, same. You never, I tell my students all the time, never, ever, ever, ever leave the room until you know what the next steps are. I cannot tell you how many times I get in meetings with my students and I say, great. How did the interview go? Oh, really great. Okay. Did they tell you when they're going to get back to you? Oh, no. You know, so never leave the room without knowing what the next steps are. You can say, okay, so can you tell me what the next steps are? And you can also politely ask, so when's a good time for me to follow up with you? And that's when you can ask the email question. So yeah, you can always ask that. And then if for some reason you can't, you can always either search their website, because you'll usually get their format, okay? You'll usually somehow get their format. Maybe it's, even if they're going to like the press releases is a good way to see the format of their emails. So just follow that format, and then most likely that will reach the person. The other way you can do it is there's probably somebody who scheduled your interview. So you can always email that person and you can just say, I'm so sorry, I didn't get to ask, but would you mind telling me what the best email to contact this person is at? And they'll send it to you.
Awesome. I'm seeing one or two last questions in here about mentors. Are mentors important in the job search? What has your experience been there to date looked like?
I haven't really had any mentors during the job search, but I think like overall, I've been getting some like coaching from someone that has experience in like leading a US or like a European company, but in the US. So for me in those like uncharted territories, those coaching like help you navigate things. But I think overall, like a mentor just helps you kind of stay motivated and like encouraged during the process. So I definitely don't think it would hurt. But for me personally, I haven't had a mentor, but I think it would definitely help out.
I think it's also, and that's a great point, I think it's also your personal preference. If you thrive with your own support system, if you thrive with, because you're gonna have days when you, to be perfectly honest and perfectly transparent, you're gonna have days where you're gonna have this awesome interview, this really awesome interview, you hit everything, and then for some reason it falls through. Okay, so if you thrive by having that support system, by having someone who's not your family, but a person who knows your industry, who knows the position you're going after, I would say get one. There's many organizations out there that offer mentor advice. So definitely mentors help with that. The other place where mentors help is when you actually get a job, because when you actually get a job, then you're going to have to, or even while you're job searching, what is your career path in the long run? You may get like your first job, but maybe 5 years from now you want to go someplace else. So always having a mentor, no matter what stage in your career is, it's always beneficial.
Great advice. Well, with that, I don't see any more questions. If I missed it, feel free to post it again or unmute yourself and ask. But if there's no other questions, maybe we can, oh, here we go. Any advice for people in their early careers in data science? What are some insights particularly for this industry?
For data science, well, my first two data science students, they were job searching during the pandemic. So at that, well, we're still in the pandemic, duh, but basically, you might want to see what they're actually searching for data for, and then also you might want to see what other titles are, like data analyst, even anything. You might even just want to Google descriptions of the job posting, not the job title, but like descriptions of, like, if it's R, if it's, you know, any sort, the languages that they're looking for. Because sometimes, and it's true, sometimes companies don't even know like the title that they're searching for. They just know that the skills that they need. So I would say also search for the skills.
We have another question. So if work offers on sites do not work as well, do the job pages in communities like Latinas in tech or women in product and such make any difference?
I would say so, especially with like Techqueria, because usually the person posting are either like a recruiter or they're part of that company. So you can kind of ask them questions, get a feeling for the company, and then potentially ask them if they can refer you. So I think it's just like, rather than like a cold application, you have somebody to like kind of bounce ideas off of. And I mean, it's up to the person, but I think if you have a good conversation and you ask, the majority of people in that organization will refer you to, and then that at least gets you an interview or a deeper dive into a resume look.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I mean, it's not much different, but people hire people. They don't hire job descriptions, you know? So the more people that know you, that's why you want to network within a company or within an industry, the better off you'll be.
Awesome.
I have a question. Yeah, hi. So I'm really new to this referral. I've been looking through the Slack channel and trying to talk with people there, but not sure how to ask them for the referral itself, or how does it work? Like they forward my resume or they just write something about me? How does it work?
This is in the, which Slack channel is this in?
Techqueria channel?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think like for me, usually it's like a question that's specific to what you're looking for. So I know I'm in the marketing channel, and there might be somebody that's just like, hey, I'm an entry-level person. Can someone look at my resume to give me any tips? And usually kind of people in the thread will have actionable things and then kind of join in. I think the more direct you can be in the question is helpful, because sometimes if you're overarching like a little bit too broad or not as direct, then sometimes it's just hard for people to spend the time on that rather than asking like a direct question. I've seen people engage with those questions in the Slack more often.
You also want to, I love that Matthew's just leading this and I just get to add on, but you also just want to ask like one or two poignant questions. You don't want to overwhelm people, because like Matthew was saying, the more specific and also concise your questions are, the easier it is for people to answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, we're almost at the hour, so I'll read off one more question and then maybe we can wrap up from here. I did also see a question come through about contact info, so I'll coordinate with the group here to get everyone follow-up information if anyone wants to connect personally. Where did the company go? Amy asks, what are companies doing to diversify in present times? What are some initiatives that we can partake in? I know we touched upon that earlier, but what are maybe some things you're working on personally or that you've seen companies work on that might feed into that?
Well, I can only speak for Flatiron, and I wish I had more time to look at what other companies are doing, but I just don't have time in my day. So one of the things, like some companies, they set up like either a, oh my gosh, I lost the word. They set up like a like a panel or what's that word? Like a task force. That's it. They set up like a task force, so you can Google like a company name and Google diversity task force, or you can even, again, it's like Google a company name diversity press release. Okay, because a lot of people want to look good, so to be honest, they might release a press release to tell you what their diversity efforts are. Or you can Google a company and diversity efforts. Okay, and then the other thing you might want to do is you might want to look at what the nonprofits are doing. You know, Colors of Change. What are their ally companies? You know, what companies do they support? You know, so going the nonprofit angle, going to those like diversity meetup groups. Women Who Code is a good example. You know, out in tech, anything like all those diversity technology groups, you can see who they support, and those are probably good companies to research and to network with.
Yeah, from my experience, I think like when a company has like ERGs, like employee resource groups, it's usually a good sign that it's top of mind for them. My startup is really small, but it is something that we kind of support behind the scenes of like supporting like certain initiatives and groups that we align with protests and things like that. So I think overall it kind of looks different with every company, but I think all in all, it's a bit isolating at times being the only person of color in some spaces. So I think it's important to get plugged into these other communities so you can bounce ideas of, hey, like this is the scenario, and like, have you ever felt weird in this? And I think for me, that's where Techqueria has really helped me over the years of just kind of knowing that like there's other people that might not look like everybody else in the room, and that's encouraging. And I think that's the first step, and then helping others kind of get in the room as well, and having a fair chance. So but the companies I've worked for haven't had like ERGs, and for me, I just try to like be a resource and bounce ideas off of people and kind of listen and grow from there. But like the Googles and the Facebooks and the Slacks, usually they have resources like that. But some of the smaller companies, it's not as top of mind in my personal experience.
Awesome. Well, with that, I want to say thank you, Ellen and Matthew, for taking time out of your day and presenting and sharing your expertise and taking the time to do it. So I'll hand it back off to you. Oh, Ellen, go ahead. Can
I just answer some of these questions that I'm just saying? So really quickly, okay, introverts, okay. So yes, if you're an introvert, it can be sometimes hard to speak. What you can do, this is what you have that's beneficial in this time. You're in your home. You actually have a screen, and you cannot see yourself, and basically you're talking to a screen. So what I would do is I would practice with your family member who's in the room, and just talk about yourself so that you get used to talking about yourself. Recording yourself on a Loom video, so you just get used to the screen, okay? The other thing, is there any design Slack channels? Again, look at those 400 Slack channels that I listed. Go from there and then type in UX UI Slack channel and see what happens. And there was one other, so entry-level positions, yes, that they're asking for like 8 years experience or 10 years experience these days. Don't worry about the years of experience. If it's entry-level, you might as well just give it a shot, because sometimes they're just making a posting based on their unicorn person. So see what bullet points you can hit, and don't really worry about the bullet points you don't. I think that's it, Lindsay. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Matt, and of course, Lindsay and Flatiron for partnering with us again. And I hope everyone got some very useful information out of this. And like I mentioned in the chat, we will be sharing the video on Techqueria's YouTube channel at some point, along with Ellen's her slide. I believe she'll be sharing her slide with us. So I can go ahead and email that to everyone. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.